Okay, a change of pace, away from all the PGMOL stuff I've been doing. But if you want to sign a petition to get them investigated, it's in the link below. Right, on to episode 3 of the 20 greatest Liverpool players of my lifetime. So number 18, the Great Dane, Jan Mølby. One of the silkiest, technically excellent midfielders to ever play for Liverpool. Incredibly accurate, short passing, long passing, a thunderous shot, and graceful all over the pitch. He was a joy to watch. And the best Scouse accent of anybody not born in Liverpool. In terms of honours, he won the Eredivisie and Dutch Cup double in 1982-83 with Ajax. He played 57 games for Ajax, scored 11 goals before moving to Liverpool. At Liverpool, he went on to win 3 English League titles and 2 FA Cups. So, where did it all begin? He was born in Kolding, Denmark, and he played for his local team, Kolding IF, in 1981 before he was picked up by Ajax, where he played 1 season alongside the great Johan Cruyff, which is going to be instrumental in his career. A few years later, when Cruyff became manager of Barcelona, he actually tried to sign Jan from Liverpool because of, quote, Jan's versatility and tactical understanding of the game. Liverpool were apparently okay to sell, but they wanted 1.6 million up front, and Ajax only offered them 400,000 over 4 years. So Liverpool thankfully said no. Don't know why they wanted to sell him in the first place. In those 57 games he played for Ajax, I told you how many he scored, but he actually scored 3 goals in his first 3 games for them. So immediately endeared himself to the fans as a fan favourite and was all over the media as the new player scoring all the goals. Didn't do him any harm. And of course that dream start would get even better by the first season that he played there. They won the Dutch double. Then in August 1984, he moved to Liverpool for a fee of around £200,000 to £250,000. Less than a week's wages for many players now. His Liverpool career spanned 12 years, and in doing so, he became the first overseas player to ever play for an English club for in excess of 10 years. Now, considering he was hard as nails and he scared people to death on the pitch, he was also a really fair player. No nasty streak in him at all. He let his football brain do the talking. In 358 total career games, he only got booked 8 times and he was sent off once, and that was for 2 yellow cards playing for Ajax. And if you ever watch Jan tackle or in 50-50 battles, he won virtually every one of them. I can't actually remember him losing one, but I'm sure he must have at some point. It didn't matter who the opposing player was, didn't matter their size. Players would go in for the tackle with Jan and he just bounced off him, and away he went with the ball. It was a sight to see, it was brilliant. And never once did Jan Mølby ever pull out of a tackle or pull out of a 50-50. And yeah, in all that time, he was never sent off for Liverpool. And in 218 English top flight games for Liverpool, he was only ever booked twice. It was pretty incredible for being in that midfield general role. So, how did he end up becoming a Red? Well, Graham Souness, who was the midfield general, was leaving the club to join Sampdoria, and that was right after our European Cup win of 1984. So Liverpool needed a top-class replacement because Souness was some player. Jan was at Ajax at the time, was invited for a 10-day trial at the club. Now, his first match was against Home Farm in Ireland, believe it or not. And in that game, he took the ball on his chest, kneed the ball over the defender and volleyed it home. He shared a room on that trip, by the way, with Kenny Dalglish, of all people. So, and this is how they did it back then. They saw him in that game, they saw what he did for that goal, and they'd seen enough. Ronnie Moran walked over to him and said, report to Anfield on Monday. He reported to Anfield on Monday and Joe Fagan signed him. Simple as that. But while on the surface it seemed straightforward, it wasn't quite as easy as that, because Jan also spoke to 3 other clubs, including Manchester City. But being the smart man that he is, he chose us. And then it was King Kenny, his first ever roommate, who propelled Jan's Liverpool career by promoting him to first choice for the Liverpool team in 1984. And Jan was undoubtedly the best player in the 1985-1986 double winning season, justifying Kenny's faith in him. Kenny said after promoting him to the first team, "I couldn't believe such a creative player was languishing in Liverpool reserves and I couldn't wait to use him." How right was Kenny? Not surprisingly. He played 292 games for Liverpool, scoring 61 goals and had 42 assists. 42 of his goals were from the penalty spot, and he actually scored a hat-trick of penalties in a cup game against Coventry City on the 26th of November 1986. Incredibly, he scored a fourth penalty against Coventry in a league game a few days later. On the 26th of April 1986 against Birmingham City, Liverpool were awarded a penalty in the 83rd minute, and Jan, the penalty taker, handed the ball to centre-back Gary Gillespie. Why? Because Gary Gillespie had already scored 2 goals in that game. It was a penalty and it was 4-0 to Liverpool at the time. Gary Gillespie went up and there it was. A centre-half for Liverpool scored a hat-trick. Jan, by the way, had already converted the penalty in that game and we went on to win the game 5-0. In fact, he only ever missed 3 and he has the second best record as a penalty taker in top flight history. Only Steven Gerrard with 47 and Mo Salah with 44 have scored more penalties than Jan for Liverpool. But Jan's 93% success rate, 42 out of 45, eclipses Gerrard's 82%, 37 out of 57, and Mo's 85%, 44 out of 52. Now, going back to that extraordinary 1985-86 double winning season, Jan played 58 games that season and scored 21 goals from midfield. Would have been 22 if he hadn't given Gary Gillespie that penalty. In the cup final to seal Liverpool's first ever league FA Cup double against Everton, he had 2 assists, but the third goal came from a quite brilliant visionary pass to Ronnie Whelan, who clipped the ball into the box. So he was involved in all 3 Liverpool goals and went on record with 2 assists. Now, that was also the season of the famous lost goal, when he took the ball from inside his own half against Man United. The game wasn't televised, and this was long before mobile phones. So that incredible goal was only seen for a long, long time by the people who were in the ground that night. But I've got it here, in case you haven't seen it, or in case you just want to watch it again. Here it is.
Mølby takes it off right side and then comes forward powerfully. The Dane just past Clayton, backwards if he wasn't there. Mølby all the way into the penalty area. What a goal! Jan Mølby with a 40-yard burst. An absolutely unstoppable shot. He went past 3 players.
What a beauty. So, in the final stretch of that season, in Liverpool's last 17 games in League and Cup, we won 16 and drew 1. And Jan was involved in it all the way through. Now, in football, there's ups and there's downs. Well, the 1987-88 season for Jan was another thing entirely. It was fantastic for the team because we won a title again, but it was a bit of a disaster for Jan. First, John Walker, a Liverpool player at the time, broke Jan's metatarsal during training, putting him out for weeks. Now, funny story about that. You might remember in my Phil Neal video that Ronnie Moran had made his own plastic cast for Phil Neal's broken toe. Well, he said to Jan, after he broke his metatarsal, he said, go and put that under the tap, son. Jan actually had to get one of the stewards to drive him to Walton Hospital, and he was put in a cast for 6 weeks. When he made his return in a reserve game against Everton, he got injured again. Later that season, and I'm sure Jan won't mind me saying this because he's been on record on LFC TV and he's talked about this a lot, but he was charged with reckless driving and he ended up taking a bit of a holiday at Her Majesty's pleasure. And while he was in there, he got this brilliant story. Word got around that he was in a cell, but no one could see each other. So someone in one of the cells shouted, "Jan, you there?" And one of the other inmates, not Jan, who stayed quiet, shouted back, "Yeah, I'm here." And they started to ask Jan questions, and this other Scouser was making up the answers while Jan was sitting there quiet, not saying a word. And as Jan explained it later, this random Scouse lad became Jan Mølby for about an hour and a half. Anyway, Jan thought that was that, his Liverpool career was over, but King Kenny, once again, was instrumental because he convinced the club to give Jan a second chance, and he eventually regained his place in the team and won a second FA Cup in 1992. In April 2009, Jan was officially made an honorary Scouser by the Lord Mayor of Liverpool. Jan said, "Only recently, I've said this since the day I arrived, and I still say it now, Liverpool is the most welcoming city on earth." And it is. Now, you may or may not know this, but there's a running gag by comedian Troy Hawk, Milo McCabe, as he performs as a street greeter, and that he was sent by Jan Mølby, the non-consensual CEO of the Greeters Guild. It's funnier than it sounds if you haven't watched it. The two men actually finally met in public unveiling the Jan Mølby mural on Sybil Road in March 2023. Now, Jan is not only an honorary Scouser, he also married one. He still lives in the area with his wonderful wife, Mandy. And I actually had the privilege of visiting their house a couple of years ago when we had, along with John Aldridge and Gary Gillespie, funny enough, we had a weekend event over in Vancouver put on by this website, the Facebook channel. And it was my first time ever meeting Jan, and I've got to be honest, I was a little bit nervous when I went in, but honest to God, it was like I'd known him for years within about 5 minutes. Mandy was like, "Do you want a cup of tea, love?" And they were friendly, chatty, personable, and both of them absolutely lovely people. They also now raise a ton of money for charities, which is brilliant and very in keeping with those two as people. And then at the event in Vancouver, Jan was an absolute pleasure to work with. He was a joy to behold for all the fans, telling stories, joining the party atmosphere, and acting like he always says, like he's just one of us, and he absolutely is. So I'll end by saying Jan was a quite brilliant midfielder. Robbie Fowler puts Jan into the all-time greats of Liverpool, quote, because of his vision and his ability to put the ball wherever I wanted it. In fact, it was Jan who convinced Graham Souness, who was back at Liverpool as manager at the time, to take a risk on playing a young, untried Robbie Fowler. Now, I really will finish with this. Jan is so humble that when he was asked what does he want to be remembered for, this was his answer. By someone who maybe brought a skill set we might not have seen before and maybe played the game in a slightly different way. You certainly did, mate, and it was an honour to watch you grace the field for Liverpool for all of those seasons as a Red. You were an artist on the pitch and one of the greatest midfielders we've ever had. Jan Mølby, the Great Dane, number 18 in my 20 greatest players of my lifetime. Number 17, hopefully coming soon. Cheers for now, all the best, you'll never walk alone. Ta-ra.